Hello there, I'm Manish Shekhar and welcome to the Global Dialogue series on Neurodiversity. Neurodiversity embraces how we all think, learn, communicate and experience the world differently from one another. In this podcast, every fortnight, we talk with different people to showcase how we are accepting the diversity of human brain and mind in different parts of the world and the need for inclusion of all individuals with different cognitive abilities into the mainstream society. Our guest today is Leena Haque, Senior UX Designer and Neurodiversity Program Lead at BBC. As a neurodivergent individual, Leena overcame many barriers she faced from education to employment and is working towards breaking those barriers for others using innovation and creativity. She has made significant contribution to the betterment of the neurodiverse community locally, nationally and globally. At a time when neurodiversity was virtually unknown, Leena's dedication and persistence delivered an engaging narrative for change and support. Leena co-led the BBC Neurodiversity Initiative Cape, which she has nurtured and grown from a small temporary project within the finance department to an organization-wide program. Leena is recognized as a key influencer in the media and creative sectors. She has received multiple awards for her work in BBC Cape from the National Autistic Society, the Business Disability Forum, and Creative Diversity Network. Hi Leena, thank you so much for joining our Global Dialogue series on Neurodiversity.
Hi Manu, thanks for inviting me. It's a real joy to be here and I'm glad to be talking to you about neurodiversity.
Same here, Leena. Leena, could you give a few words about yourself for our audience today?
Sure. So my name is Leena Haque and I work for the BBC as a Senior User Experience Designer. I also co-lead the BBC's Neurodiversity Initiative, BBC Cape, which stands for Creating a Positive Environment. Just to describe what CAPE is, it's a design-led creative initiative and it's about removing barriers in the workplace and creating opportunities for neurodivergent people, which looks at awareness, improving understanding and support available for people with different neurological differences such as autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, etc. The list is vast. Although these differences make people unique individuals, it also makes them more vulnerable to certain workplace issues. So to help tackle these issues, we're looking to create, at the BBC, we're looking to create a supportive work environment where neurodivergent individuals feel safe enough to share, their concerns, their thoughts, and be able to flourish in the workplace.
That's really amazing. Leena, I've always admired your journey and I really believe that it's an inspiration and you're a positive role model for many neurodiverse individuals. How you overcame your barriers in education to employment and how you're leading a neurodiverse initiative at BBC. What has been your key motivator for all this?
Well, I'll start from the beginning. So as a neurodivergent individual, I was diagnosed with autistic spectrum condition and ADHD, and basically I struggled a lot in school. I overcame barriers in education and eventually found some success in the workforce, but it was quite a journey. As a child, I struggled to fit in with my peers, and as soon as I learned I was old enough to understand what it meant to be different from my peers, I learned that school was not going to be an easy place for me. The future was definitely uncertain because of my learning differences and struggling to, cope with my education and keep up with the curriculum because of the difference that I had. So, despite that, with a level of support from my family, from, the good teachers, I was able to succeed in school eventually and go on to university. And I realized that, it would be good to take advantage of the resources that would be available to me because I know that there were challenges certainly ahead. I was expecting more challenges. I still struggle with situations and keeping up with some tasks, but now I know how to manage my time better. I know myself better. Thanks to, having these diagnoses, I understand myself better and what skill sets best suited for each task or what my strengths are. It's this whole thing about spiky profile where where areas you find challenging and where the areas that you are quite strong at. So having this experience has been a motivator for me, the ups and downs I experienced from education to employment. So after I finished my education, I made a promise to myself that others would not face the same struggles and barriers that I had faced in education, or in the career. So, just because my future was uncertain, I just feel every child, and young person, regardless of what their ability is, and or how they think, deserves a happy and safe future. So that's been the motivation. So I hope I've answered that question.
That's really nice. And I think it's a really beautiful motivator also, like taking your own struggles and how you want to change it for others. One of the common themes that we get in our global dialogue series on neurodiversity is that how difficult it is for neurodiverse individuals to get promotions. But your career growth has been great. What are the factors and support system that helped you to get here?
Um, well, okay, it's a tricky one, but I will try my best to answer it. I've seen the need to create a community of support for neurodivergent individuals in the workplace. It's difficult for these individuals to get promotions, and my career growth has been good due to the understanding and support from my co-workers and senior leaders. I mean, I still have a long way to go. In fact, recently I was not so successful in an assessment, and which consisted of a day of tasks of methods using psychometric tests, role plays, situation judgment tests. And anyone who's neurodivergent will understand that these methods can be inaccessible, and are not designed for not designed for the neurodivergent mind, but more so for neurotypical minds. And for me, what was disheartening is like, this is the way that people can, organizations assess individuals in order for them to progress in their careers or to get a job. And it's quite old-fashioned, these methods, and the fact that we need to be open to new ways of assessing an individual's ability and skill set. So, and also the fact that we are filtering out talent. If you want to find new talent who bring new ideas to the table, then this way isn't a way forward. It's quite problematic because it limits creativity. Because what happens is these testings, most of the people who are successful tend to be similar and not divergent in their thinking, and this can lead to lack of innovation and creativity, and you just end up employing the same kind of people all the time, and you're minimizing cognitive diversity, and they're designed to measure also. I feel like instead of that innovation side of things, that out of the box thinking that I feel I could have offered it, these kinds of assessments are designed to measure a person's ability to follow instructions and perform well in sort of management speak, for example, and they can demonstrate process, but not their ability to say actively listen or really truly lead. So I found it difficult, recently, and it was because it's recent as I'm mentioning it now. And I'm sure there's other people. I mean, rejection is part of life, so it's not, for me, it was a learning experience, and I hope by me sharing the fact that this has happened, other people will be able to relate, and it's like you're not alone, and it's not you, it's just unfortunately the system is designed in such a way that it seems to be about measuring skills that are already known and not to find new skill sets. Do you know what I mean? So it's all subjective as well, because these kinds of testing that most organizations use, may not be able to provide an accurate picture of what people will do in real life, so it is quite, old school, and I'm hoping that change will happen. For me, I learned a lot from going through the experience. But, it can be difficult for people who are neurodivergent, who are introverted, or who prefer different communication skills. And basically, I think the best leaders, for example, aren't necessarily extroverts or neurotypical. For example, I'm not sure how well Elon Musk, who also happens to be on the autistic spectrum, because he recently said he has Asperger's, I'm not sure how he would fare through this kind of testing, because he's very different and he comes across as quite introverted. So, if he were to go through something like this kind of assessment and testing, I'm not sure. And the final point I want to make is that, a leader or a manager can either break or make an employee's career. And I have faced both sides of that coin of leadership. I've been supported and empowered by some really good leaders, And I've also had some not so good leaders create barriers so I couldn't progress, in my work. So, the saying, we rise by lifting others. I wish some leaders would understand that by supporting and nurturing talent, they're not losing anything. And as a neurodivergent individual, I've always felt like I had to work harder than the rest of my colleagues in a way, because and it was also because it was difficult for me to be taken seriously because of my neurological differences and my neurodiversity. But with the help of my brilliant, line manager, Sean, he's amazing. He's also co-lead on the BBC Cape initiative with me and other colleagues. I've been able to find ways in which I can contribute more to the organization, and it's helped me grow as a person and professionally also. But I think, the struggle for neurodivergent individuals is not about finding a job that allows them to use their talents, but it's also about being taken seriously and being recognized, truly recognized for their skill sets. And this is where allyship comes in, the concept of allyship, which is basically an act of support and understanding towards those who are different from you.
That's really, really insightful thoughts you shared. And I mean, so much, especially the part where you said leaders either make or break a person. That's so true. Understanding the nurturing element, right? And I'm really happy to share about your recent, what you went through. And I'm really sorry. I mean, they missed out a great talent, obviously. What how do you handle rejection? How do you take it forward from that?
So it's not the first time I've been rejected. It certainly won't be the last time. You know, I feel like, unfortunately, some of the systems in place in terms of recruitment and hiring inadvertently discriminate against neurodivergent individuals, and a real review needs to happen. And for me, the way I took it is, I mean, it was hard because it was so very recent, and it did make me feel like, a failure, like, that I'd let my family down, or I'd let my, colleagues down or something. I don't know. I just felt like, sometimes when I face rejection in life, which I've faced a lot, I felt like giving up, like, oh, you know what, this is too hard. I'm never going to make it. And there have been times like that in my life. I pick myself up. I don't know what it is. Something in me is like, there's still hope, there's still light in all the darkness, and I think, kindness motivates me, the fact that helping others motivates me. So I feel like, okay, on that occasion, I couldn't help myself and I was rejected, but I'm going to make sure no one else goes through that experience. I'm going to try and help them so they don't face that experience, if you see what I mean. And yeah, anyone who's listening to us talking about it and being open about it, because not many people are, I think there's a stigma to talking about things like rejection and failure, and I don't like the word failure. It's more like a learning experience. Treat it as a learning experience that, okay, on this occasion you didn't make it, but what can you take away from it as learning? What can you do? How can you build on that as a foundation? Because every house starts on the ground. It starts as just a piece of land and there's nothing there. So that's how I treat rejection, because I'm thinking, okay, I can still build a house on there. It's just an empty piece of land at the moment. And you do end up feeling empty, but you can build on it. You can build on that, an empty piece of land, and you can grow things, beautiful flowers and things like that. But yeah, that's how I look at it, really, just to keep positive. I mean, that's why, we created Cape. It's all about creating a positive environment. It's an ethos, really, that I take with me. With Cape, it was, I think, the name Cape came from, like, when I was growing up, because I was really into comic books, and basically when I was growing up, and being neurodivergent, I faced a lot of bullying, from children who can be, if you're a bit different, then children can treat you like you're different and they can exclude you or whatever. And I was really heavily into reading comic books and superheroes and things like that. And I growing up, I either wanted to be a superhero or wanted to be rescued by one, depending on the situation I found myself in at school. But that's where I guess capes came from, like the superhero cape. We're here to protect, we're here to serve. with the BBC, it's, you know what I mean? It's about serving our audiences, serving the community. And from, I've, again, Cape was again, it started from a negative experience where I experienced bullying and being treated differently, and being in isolation, and something like, you can create something beautiful from something that's bad. You know what I mean? You can something positive from something negative. You just got to look hard enough to have that patience and that resilience, which fortunately I had, to just pick myself up and think, okay, I've gone through a bad situation, but how can I get something positive out of it? So that's what we're trying to achieve with Kate.
Definitely. And it's really, really is beautiful, as you say, taking your failure and using that as a learning experience and growing from there. It's a building block, right? It's step by step we grow. And definitely you sharing this openly with us will motivate many people that, rejection is not the end point. It is a starting point for many of us.
Yeah, I think sorry, yeah, I think because people think, oh, I'm at the BBC, I've made it. No, it's not the I haven't made it. Is a struggle. It is still a struggle for me, and I face barriers every day, almost every day. So once you're in, it's like, that's not it. You have to put a lot of work, and and conversations need to be had, just to make sure the environment is accessible and that you're treated fairly and stuff. So and sometimes what it is with organizations, that they don't realize, a lot of organizations is like, unfortunately, they don't realize that they're inadvertently creating barriers for people, you see. So it's not intentional, but sometimes it takes people like me to say, just to put my hand up and say, oh, that's a barrier that you've, inadvertently, you didn't realize this. I just need to let you know that there's a barrier here which is preventing someone to come in. So it's about having that voice. And I feel like without the support that I've had, I wouldn't be as empowered to speak up, and highlight any issues or barriers. So yeah, definitely there's more we can do, and in order to create a safe space for people like myself and others who are neurodivergent. And yeah, just don't worry about rejection, because it's something, it's part of life. It usually means it's not meant to be, like there's something else better waiting for you, basically. So if I give any hope to anyone who's listening, because for me it's like, a lot of people think, it's shameful to discuss a rejection or failure. It's better to keep it quiet. But I'm quite open about it, because I'm thinking, if it helps somebody, that they're not alone in this experience, and it also motivates them to think, okay, if they experience something like this, then they can carry on, and it's not the end of the world. There are other opportunities. There's always going to be opportunities. Just don't feel bad about one incident. It's just part of life.
One of the things that's maybe a little bit sad is that definitely somebody's rejection is not because of people's capability, as you mentioned earlier, that it's maybe because they work differently and the system is not designed to support them, right? And I think one factor that is stopping many neurodiverse individuals from their promotion or growth is probably because the system is not designed, the way the assessment is being done. What are your thoughts on that, and how can we change that?
Yeah, I think I touched about it before. System design at the moment, the current sort of recruitment and hiring systems are inaccessible. I would definitely say mostly inaccessible for neurodivergent individuals. I experienced it recently in the assessment, because I was put through role play, situational judgment testing, psychometric testing. It didn't cater to my mind, and I was put in a group scenario. So if you have a neurodivergent condition and you're susceptible to social anxiety, then you're not going to be able to perform in a group setting in that way under timed conditions as well. The pressure is on. And if you have social anxiety, which can be a symptom of your condition, and it can be amplified in that kind of situation, then it's almost like, it's like you already have, like, it's the system sort of set you up to fail already, because they're not considering the different communication styles, like, or you could be introverted. I think in order to improve the work environment for neurodivergent people, we need to first understand what they go through and what they need. Actively listen. And I'm trying my best to feed back to say this assessment process is inaccessible. There are better ways to assess someone's abilities, because we are inadvertently filtering out talent, really good talent, people who are capable, like you say, who have these strong abilities, but they're not able to showcase them in that setting. So for me, I feel like my environment can be disabling, but I am not disabled, if you see what I mean. If I have the right tools and the right level of support and understanding, then there's no reason why I can't flourish in a role. I think the system's quite unfair at the moment, to be honest. And I'm sure a lot of people who are neurodivergent will, can empathize with that, what I'm saying, because they'll have gone through similar situations. So with this understanding, we need employers to come up with creative solutions that will benefit both the employer and their employees, like a win-win scenario for both. And that's what another aspect of what we're trying to do with the CAPE initiative, is that we are looking for, employers to think about creative solutions on how they assess individuals, because those systems and processes are designed for the neurotypical mind, and they are inadvertently filtering out neurodivergent thinkers and talent. So, neurodivergent people have different abilities, different learning styles, processing, different ways of processing information, for example. So again, the system and processes, is not considering those factors. So we're losing people right at the start, to be honest, as a result of that. And what happens is you end up, the people who do successfully get through those kinds of tests and assessments are very, very similar, and it becomes about groupthink and homogeneity, and everybody's very similar in their thinking. You may get diversity on a visible level, but in terms of thinking, you get the same kind of people, the same kind of leaders, and we're missing out on creativity and innovation as a result. Another issue is the workplace can also be difficult for neurodivergent people, because they're often not recognized as having any issues, and their needs are not met as a result of this, because on the surface you look fine, there's nothing, it's assumed that there's no issues, and there's also a lack of resources available to neurodivergent individuals at work, such as accommodations and support systems. So there are many ways an employer can nurture strong support systems. One way is to have a culture of acceptance and inclusion that is open to all types of people, regardless of their differences. And another way is by providing, say, flexible working, looking at inclusive design, which is, again, a big part of CAPE's work. We're looking at how, workplace is designed, and how we can be more inclusive of neurodivergent thinkers. So, we've done a lot of work around that, and in terms of creating tools and training, which we were able to influence our BBC workplaces, for example. And as a result of that, we inputted into the design brief for one of the headquarters in Cardiff. And I believe it's one of the first neurodivergent friendly designed buildings, workspaces. So we consider things like lighting, quiet spaces, the design and look and feel. So it's accommodating for people who think differently. And as a result of that work, it's informing the British Standards Institute. So there will be like guidelines for organisations to create more neuro-inclusive spaces, to design more spaces which cater to the neurodivergent mind. Because again, the workplace can be quite a hard place to be in terms of, for a neurodivergent person to concentrate on their work, for example. It may not cater accessibility wise in terms of cognitive accessibility. So we've thought a lot about that as well. Creating that environment also is about the workplace, the culture, and the people.
Definitely. And talking about CAPE, what has been your experience in co-leading it, and how did you feel about it? And what are obviously you guys given a lot of guidelines, and how did you inspire on those guidelines?
Again, from my own experience in also talking to neurodivergent individuals, it was very co-design led. So one of the benefits of when you're thinking about designing processes for a community, it's good to have the community involved and bring them on as co-designers, not as customers or clients per se. Yes, they're going to be using it, but if you bring them on as co-designers from the start, you're likely to create a more inclusive place. So we were very big about, talking to neurodivergent individuals and getting their sort of experiences and understanding what they go through when they enter a workplace. Does it cater to them? Are they comfortable in that environment? Have they got the right tools and support? So a lot of that involved, getting people's stories and experiences and learning more about how they feel about the working environment has informed the guidelines that we've created. So we created a checklist called Design for the Mind, and it's a sensory neuro-inclusive toolkit that explores, the different sensory experiences that individuals who with, different neurological differences that some people may experience. So, and we created lots of workshops. I mean, had we not done that and informed our workplace teams, they would not have thought about when they were designing for the new, work building. They wouldn't have thought about neurodiversity had we not, informed them and taken them through workshops, shared our tools and guidelines with them. So otherwise, it would have been designed as a very sort of, standard building, which considered physical accessibility, but wouldn't have considered cognitive accessibility. See what I mean? I think most buildings have to be legally, they have to provide physical accessibility, but now more and more, because we know more people are identifying as neurodivergent, organizations are realizing that cognitive accessibility is also a necessity if we want to cater for those kinds of minds and talent. We need to be able to create an environment where they can actually come in and work and not feel like the environment is working against them for various reasons, such as sensory or navigation as well. That's something that we thought about. And we created a virtual reality experience which informed our workplace teams and informed for the design of Cardiff, for example. They went through the virtual reality experience. So technology, again, for me, is a great tool because we created this experience, which was about 5 minutes. And it was basically 5 minutes in the mind of somebody who's neurodivergent, and you could learn about what they're experiencing in the work environment. So anyone who doesn't have an understanding of neurodiversity, they try the experience, and then they could feel the sensory, issues that, that have in the work, and also the different communication styles people have. And as soon as people tried that experience, they were like, oh my gosh, is that what it's like for you? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty much like that 24/7, except you have the luxury of taking off your headset. I have to wear mine all the time, because I experience it all the time. But it was really interesting because we were able to use that virtual reality experience as an educational tool to help people understand neurodiversity better and the impact, the work environment can have on the individual. So that had quite a powerful impact on, design team involved in changing our workplaces at the BBC. And also it's been shared internationally as well. Lots of organizations are using it. It's freely available on YouTube. So feel free to use it to help inform and sort of educate people basically. But it's a great start. It's a great conversation starter. And and for me, part of it was, it can be hard for neurodivergent to describe what it feels like, what their world feels like. So that's the story behind the virtual reality experience. It's like, it's there because then it helps if you're not comfortable with talking about what it feels like, what your world is like, and how tough it can be and challenging, then this experience kind of helps, I think, for me personally anyway. So I don't, if I can't say what it's like, because sometimes it can be so overwhelming, it's hard to describe. But the experience we created, it was a good way of highlighting that, so I wouldn't have to, if you see what I mean. So again, that was about removing that barrier. If people struggle to talk about their experiences, then this experience is a great conversation starter to help others understand more about the subject matter.
Definitely. And it's really amazing, how you're taking your personal experience and using technology and to showcase it and make it better for others. And talking about technologies, how has assistive technology helped you in your career, in your education and growth?
Um, so I have been using assistive technology since I was a student. It's helped me in many ways. As someone with neurodivergence, it's important to understand how your brain works and what type of assistive technology or devices can help you get around your daily life more easily, or even give you a boost in your productivity. Um, these days, there are a lot of tools that are not necessarily called assistive technology. They're just apps that are out there for everybody, which is brilliant because sometimes, when you talk about assistive technology, people think, oh, it must be disability related. But there are a lot of tools that have been created for everybody that people who don't have a disability or neurodiverse condition are using these tools for productivity. So that's when, what it means to be included. I've used technologies such as text to speech, voice recognition software, in order to communicate effectively with others, and reminder apps, for example, to organize my schedule, organize tasks for productivity. I remember when I was a student and I received my PC that would read what was written on the screen as well. That was the first time, and this is the first time my parents realized how much this type of technology could help people like me, and how they realized, because they didn't really have an understanding of what technology could do, and the fact that it can remove barriers. So again, with the right tools and environment, there is no reason why a neurodivergent person can't flourish. I know I wouldn't have flourished if I didn't have access to assistive technology. So I wouldn't be talking to you right now, basically. So I'm very lucky. I feel because I know there are a lot of people who can't have access or who don't have access to technology for various reasons, because of financial reasons, or what, it could be the fact that it's just not readily available to them. So I realize I'm quite fortunate in that sense.
And we spoke earlier about assessment and for career growth, right? Now, when we mix, many people use assistive technology. Most people think that giving extra time is enough, but is that sufficient? I think you should change the process itself, right?
Yes, totally. So in the recent assessment I went through, extra time was offered because I was open about I was open about my neurodiversity. And I explained that I would be using assistive technology as well. And at best, they said they could do was give me extra time, which is the staple answer for any recruiter or anyone who's organizing an assessment. Is like, oh, if you really need it, we can give you extra time, which is not, it's not the answer. I think an education piece there, awareness is necessary for organizations to understand what technology is available out there and how it could support individuals. More research definitely needs to go, more resource and research needs to go behind this, because extra time is, in this day and age, in this century, I think it's unacceptable. Extra time is an unacceptable response. If you're going to ask for reasonable adjustments or accommodations, then for an employer or a recruiter to come back with that answer is kind of lazy, and it shows that it's that they don't necessarily care. And in order to make them care, I think more education is needed, because they're obviously not aware of what's available to provide that kind of response, because extra time can also go against someone who's neurodivergent, because that's not necessarily what people are talking about. We need to change the style and the format of assessments, which is going to take time. I mean, it hasn't happened yet, but I'm hoping, I'm still hopeful that, and for me, it's like I went through this experience, and now it's like another task that I feel I have to take on to create change the system, because I feel the system is inequitable at the moment, as it is. But yeah, we could do better. And yeah, more education is needed around technology and also other tools that can be readily available for neurodivergent individuals, and anyone with a disability, for example, could benefit from that, because I just feel yeah, it's just disheartening that we're still in that stage where extra time is the response, the staple response to when you go and ask for support. Um, one of the things I thought about was the social anxiety of going through an assessment like that. When you're in a group setting and everybody's sort of, you're dealing with a bunch of like extroverted people who are quite dominating in meetings. You know what it's like in a meeting, and you're the one who's kind of introverted and you just sort of listen. But it's, something like having a buddy with you, a friend or someone to support you through that, so you don't feel that level of anxiety. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just about technology. You could have like someone as a support with you to help you through the group situations, the group tasks, for example. Just them being there is a comfort.
Definitely. And I think one of the brighter side to look into this is that how people like you are becoming change makers and informing and letting people know how to do it and speaking up, right? And that's really important, right? To speak up, telling organization what is working for you, what is not working for you, and them adapting to that. So talking about this, what does inclusion mean to you, and what is it, why is it important, how can we go about it?
Inclusion is important because it allows people to feel like they belong to a community and have the opportunity to contribute their skills and talents in ways that they wouldn't otherwise be able to. Um, inclusion is also, and I believe inclusion has also been described as a process that begins with understanding and acceptance of differences and continues with a commitment to creating an environment where all people can thrive. I guess it means, for me, being accepted for who you are and not what you do. A society that embraces inclusion is one where every individual is valued for their unique qualities and contributions. Inclusion to me is CAPE, creating a positive environment, and the ethos that it is.
I really like your cape. I mean, it's so like the name that you came up with, the superhero cape. That's really, really amazing. Please go on.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, when I was growing up, I either wanted to be a superhero or be rescued by one, depending on the situation. So for me, it's like just to be accepted and feel included. Cape has done that for me because as a result of that, I've been able to reach out to so many people, and others have been able to reach out to me. It's given me that platform to be able to do that and talk to you, and others. It's just been an amazing journey. And it's been a bumpy ride. I know. Like I say, I've recently I faced the challenge, and you have to deal with a lot of sort of barriers, but CAPE is about removing barriers. That's what we want to continue doing. And for me, it's not superhero in the sense that you've got to be a superhero with super strengths or anything. I'm not strong in that sense in superhero level at all. I'm not saying that, but it's a metaphor really. It's more like, you don't need to be a superhero to remove barriers. Anyone can do it. If I can do it, you can do it, so that's the kind of the message that it's the most unlikely of people can achieve so much. It's just we're not looking hard enough. So hopefully people will look more, that people will consider that there are people here that have a voice. We just need to give them the right tools so that they can express themselves.
Definitely. And like it's like I said in the beginning of this conversation, your journey is something that I really admire, and I really look forward to how you take all your challenges and how you make it into solution and also inspire others, right? So that's really an amazing thing to do. So what is there any final word, few things that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Just what we've been talking about overall, for me, like I say, rejection and there's no such thing as failure. I mean, recently I experienced something where I didn't get through an assessment process, and I treated it as as I treat every time I feel like it's been a rejection or or fail. I mean, there are times when you're tempted to give up. Don't, because the way I look at it is, you do end up feeling empty after a rejection or of not being successful at something, but it's not necessarily your fault. It could be a number of reasons why that's happened. And for me, I just treat it as like, okay, I've been given an empty piece of land and I can build on this. You can build a nice home on it. You can build a garden on it. Something beautiful can be created from emptiness and that negativity. So that's the mindset I've always taken. Having been rejected numerous occasions, it won't be the first time, it won't be the last, so I just hope that I can give someone who's listening to this a bit of hope that you're not alone, and the better days will come and the opportunities are there. If one wasn't meant to be, there's plenty of other opportunities, or you just create your own. Like I say, if you're given a piece of land and you feel, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this? It's empty, it's barren, you feel it's barren or whatever. It's like, no, don't give up hope. Just persevere, keep going. You can grow stuff. You just need the right level of understanding and support, and there's nothing that you can't do.
That's so true. And I really hope the leaders and companies who are hearing this will create processes and systems that will help diverse individuals to take assessment and grow in their career. A system that, can nurture them and not stop their talent and reject them in the beginning itself. So thank you, Leena, so much for joining today in our conversation. I think it's been really, really insightful and really happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much for listening to our Global Dialogue series on neurodiversity. Our next episode will be on 22nd March with Veena Naren, parent of a neurodiverse child. Veena shares her journey with her son Varun, who's diagnosed with Fragile X syndrome, and how they have been creating awareness about Fragile X syndrome in India. Till then, take care and have a great week.